All right, guys, for this last video on circles, this is where we're going to do the opposite, where we're going to come up with the equation in standard form for the circle. We're not going to graph it at all. So if you look, they're the last four problems in the note, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Saying use the information provided to write the standard form equation of each circle. Okay, you can see above it that I have written down both the standard forms of a circle. This first one is if the center is at 0, 0, which actually looks like number 7. Now remember, in order to do anything with a circle, in order to get the equation of a circle, which is what we are going to do, or to graph it, you just need to have two things. If you have the center and the radius, you can get the equation, and you can also graph. Now 7 and 8, they give us the center and the radius, so these are going to be real simple. So if I see the center is at the origin, I'm going to have this right away, x squared plus y squared, right? There's no parentheses because there's no shifts for the center. And then it equals r squared. Well, r is 13, so it's just 13 squared, which is 169. So our answer to this, or the standard form for this, is x squared plus y squared equals 169. Right? And that's it. You don't have to graph it. Now, number 8, a little bit different. The center is not at the origin. So this is where we use these. Remember, we say h and k represent the shifts. So in this case, what h is 6, k is 13. So we're going to have x minus 6 quantity squared plus y minus 13 quantity squared. And then it equals r squared. Well, remember, r is the square root of 11. So if you square the square root of 11, you just get 11 for it. All right, it's that simple right there. All right, now 9 and 10 are going to be, we're going to do a little bit more work, but the main thing to get out of 7 and 8 is once you have the center and the radius, you just plug them into these kind of formulas, I guess you could say, for the standard form. All right, let's take a look at 9 and 10. It's going to take a little bit more work. All right, let's zoom in here. Now, number 9, trying to zoom in. Okay. Number 9, it gives us the center, but it doesn't give us the radius. It gives us the point, another point that's on the circle. Now, to really understand it, I kind of graphed these 2 points in blue. So the center, -17, -15, is kind of this point right here. Now, it doesn't give me the radius. It gives me a point on the circle, -16, -14, which is pretty close to the center. That's this point right here. All right. So I know, like, the only thing we have to find is the radius. Now I know the center is what, -17, -15. So I know this is going to be what, x minus -17, which is really x plus 17 quantity squared plus, and then it's y minus -15, which is really y plus 15 quantity squared. And I know it equals the radius squared. Now, to get this radius, really, if I find the distance, if I look at this right here, the distance between the center and the point on the circle is going to give me the radius. Now, you see I have this written here. This right here is our formula for distance. So if I find the distance between the center and the point on that circle, it's going to give me the radius. All right. Um, And it's basically if you subtract the x values, subtract the y values, and square them and add them together, and they're in the square root, that's going to equal the distance, which in this case is the radius. So I'm going to even change this to distance. I'm going to change it to r. And I'm just going to use this formula. And it doesn't matter which order you go. Um, let's say I start with this, the -16. I would have -16 minus the other x value, which is -17 squared, which really is gonna it's really gonna be like adding 17. And then we'll have this -14 minus the y value of the center of the circle, which is -15. And then that's squared. And as you can see, since we subtracted negative, these both change to positives. And we're going to get 1 for each, right? Negative 16 plus 17 is 1. So we have 1 squared. Same thing here. Negative 14 plus 15 is 1. So we get 1 squared. So we're going to get 1 plus 1, which is 2. So the radius is going to equal the square root of 2. All right. So then when we put that together, when I plug square root of 2 into this, I have to square it. So when I square the square root of 2, I just get it to equal 2. So to get rid of this, I put that this just equals 2. And then this is the answer right here. All right. So that's in standard form. Now, when I move over to number 10, we're going to kind of add another step. Now, number 10, it doesn't give me this, doesn't give me the center, nor does it give me the radius. It gives me the endpoints of a diameter. And I have these 2 points, -3, -4, which I have is right here. And then it gives me the other endpoint of the diameter, -11, 8, which is right up here. Now, again, my center is not perfectly drawn out, but if I actually draw, remember if you draw a diameter, it kind of cuts the circle in half. And mine's a little ugly right there. But it cuts that circle in half. And if you find the midpoint of the diameter, which I'll put right here, that's going to be the center. So you're going to find the midpoint of the 2 endpoints of the diameter to give you the center of the circle. And remember, this is where we're kind of going back to geometry, right? You use midpoint formula a lot in geometry. To find the midpoint, you basically just take the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So if I take the average of the x's, it's really like you're just doing -3 plus 11 and then dividing it by 2. To take the average of the y's, you add the -4 and the 8 and divide it by 2. And this is going to give us the center. So when we do this, let's see here, the -3 plus the 11 would give us what? 8. 8 divided by 2 would give us, oh, sorry, I forgot the -11 here. So this should be -11. All right, I forgot that right there. So -3 plus -11 give us -14. -14 divided by 2 would give us -7. Then when we look at the y's, the -4 plus the 8 is +4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that's the midpoint, which really is the center. And if you look, that kind of looks like it's at -7 too. All right, so I have the center. Now to get the radius, this is where we're going to go back to the distance formula. This is the radius, right? The distance between the center and a point on the circle, or you could say this is the radius. So you could use the distance formula for either one. I'm going to pick the smaller values. I'm going to find the distance between this point and the center, and that's going to give me the radius. All right. So the radius, if I'm using the distance formula, I'm going to subtract the x values, which will be, let's see here. Let's say if I start with this -3, it's going to be -3 minus this -7 squared plus the difference of the y values, which is going to be -4 minus this 2, and then that's squared. So when we do this, this is going to add a line, change the sign. So -3 plus 7 is 4, so it's going to be 4 squared. And then -4 minus 2 is going to be -6, but that's going to be squared. So that'll give us what, 36. So we'll have, what is this, 16 plus 36. And 16 plus 36 would give us what, 52? So r is the square root of 52. But then when we put it in, r squared is going to be 52. So to put this all together, since the center is -7, 2, we're going to have x plus 7 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared, and it equals r squared. So when we square the square root of 52, it's just 52. All right. So you see how the last two you had to do a little bit more work. We use the distance formula in there for both, and then we also use the midpoint formula in there for number 10. All right, but main thing, you want to get the center and you want to get the radius, and then you can put it in standard form.